Common image galleries like these are boring. Use this instead. It's called a masonry image gallery. Let's see how to build it. First, in our HTML, we will create the grid container because obviously we'll use the grid layout. Inside the container, we will create a dev element with an image inside it. Now copy this block of code and paste it as much as you like. Now let's move on to CSS. We will give all the images in our gallery and max width, and height set to 100%. And because images are inline elements by default, let's set a display of inline block because it will help us make the layout of the gallery. And let's use the object fit property and set it to cover to avoid images getting stretched or squished. Next, we will center images inside their parents by using the flexbox. Now for the container, we will set a display of grid, and let's also set up the columns of our grid using the grid template columns property. This code ensures that each column is at least 250 pixels wide, but can expand to take up available space. Now let's add some space between our images. The grid autoflow property controls how auto-placed items get inserted in the grid, and by setting it to dense, this property will make sure to place items to fill any holes in the grid. Then we will set the size of the rows to 250px using the grid auto rows property. Now that actually seems like a normal gallery, nothing special about it. But when you see a masonry gallery like this, you notice that there are 4 common sizes of the images. There's a tall, wide, big, and normal image. So now let's go back to our CSS, and let's create 3 classes. Each one will make the image either taller, wider, or bigger. So for the tall class, we will use the grid row property with the value span 2. This property, by the way, specifies a grid item size and location in a grid layout. This ensures that any element with the class tall will occupy 2 rows in the grid layout. For the wide class, we will use the grid column property with the value span 2. This property has the same functionality as the grid row property, but any element with the class wide will occupy 2 columns in the grid layout. For the big class, we will use both the grid column and grid row properties. This makes any element with the class big span across 2 rows and 2 columns. Now let's go back to our HTML and add these classes randomly to some dev elements inside the container, and we'll leave some others without class. And voila! We built a masonry gallery using HTML and CSS. But guess what? This gallery is responsive. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.